Charisma Quotient. I'm your host, Kim Seltzer, a dating and makeover expert, where I will help you build confidence, make connections, and find love from the outside in. Fears of abandonment. You probably heard that word, or people say those things, that kind of overarching theme to you, but what does that really mean, and how does that impact your dating life? I mean, we all know that it originates in childhood, and this fear is often learned, and it's conditioned where a child cannot consistently rely on their caregivers for emotional or physical support, or in getting their basic needs met. And it often results in an insecure attachment style and a subsequent fear of abandonment. Now, that's a lot of psychobabble stuff. And I want to kind of just walk you through and dissect this a little bit more, because having a fear of being abandoned can really impact your romantic relationships. And like sometimes it can even manifest where you might find yourself a little clingy or become possessive or manipulative as ways of trying to prevent your inevitable fears from surfacing. And ironically, the closer and more intimate the relationship, the more intense these fears of abandonment become, which can ultimately lead to a self-fulfilling prophecy. It almost becomes a loop, and it can be so frustrating. Even as you're getting out there and dating, like the same dynamic keeps happening over and over and over again. It's like Groundhog's Day every single time. And while there are many fears of abandonment, how they like kind of show up in the dating life, I find that there's like these 5 most common ones that I want to go over. And if you have any kind of piece of paper, bring it out, because if you check off a lot of these, and it's good news, meaning there's reasons why this is. You're not alone. This is a common phenomena that happens with many people who have experienced some sort of trauma with abandonment. And we're going to talk a little bit more what to do about that. And I have a special woman on the line who is going to actually open herself up to some of these ideas. So the first one, and I would say that you probably feel right away, is the difficulties letting others in a very deeper sense. So if you've experienced abandonment in your formative years, you may have built up emotional walls to keep others out, and you've learned that vulnerability leads to further abandonment. So you constantly look for agendas, having difficulty trusting others, or you may have experienced a treacherous friend or partner who used your pain against you for their own narcissistic self-interests. And as a result, staying detached and distancing yourself from others have become self-protective. Again, it's that loop that you find yourself in. Now, on the other hand, and this almost sounds like, well, why would you experience both? But you'll hear me explain it. On the other hand, the second thing is you might be forming almost too quick of attachments. And what I mean by that is you're attaching quickly in a relationship, and you're almost like barfing out too much, right? It's like TMI, like you're sharing too many intimate details about yourself too soon, too fast, or sharing personal information with the wrong people in hopes that almost like the relationship will be fast-tracked. And in this pattern, quickly attaching to a person gets confused as connecting with them. That's super important. And at the core of this pattern of behavior is often a deep wound where a child was maybe not validated by their primary caregivers in the formative years, which left scars of feeling unseen or unheard. And the outcome is often feeling terrified that others will be rejecting or leaving you, which has left you in this like unmet need and quickly attaching to others. You see, so it's like it feels like there's this intense attachment, but it's this fear at the same time. Now, the third thing that you might feel or experience is the history of leaving relationships. Now, this may sound counterintuitive yet again, but many of you who have experienced early abandonment may now use relationships as a means to an end. So, in these situations, they often look for a reason to leave. So, you might like almost like a self fulfilling prophecy, find something. So, you might become dismissive, argumentative, devaluing of your partner, and attempt to cause a fight or find a reason to leave. And the unconscious goal is to abandon the relationship first, as your own fears of abandonment are triggered in order to minimize the emotional pain that you might experience later on if they do, in fact, leave, right? So you're almost making it happen beforehand. So you push people away before they can do it to you. The fourth is you're attracting unavailable partners. This usually plays out as a self fulfilling prophecy. Once again, choosing partners who are emotionally unavailable may be seen as a challenge in which the unconscious goal is to win the partner over or to come in as the hero and rescue them. But this all reinforces the belief that, see, love just isn't safe or lasting. And finally, and this is what we're going to dive into probably for the most part, is just this fragile self identity or feelings of not being good enough. When fears of abandonment are the overarching theme in a person's relationships, they are prone to mirror others as a way of feeling accepted, valued, wanted. And if you have a fragile sense of self, you might take on the mannerisms, beliefs, thoughts, feelings, opinions, and behavior of those closest to you in an attempt to minimize the fears of abandonment. And I call this shape shifting. It's like you shape shift into what others want of you or others like see in you so that like you'll attach, right? Or they'll like you. And this results in not knowing who you are, right? Outside of the relationship and changing who you are, so you might change the likes or dislikes or your values or even your interests from one relationship to the next, depending on what your partner likes. So, at looking at all these and healing from these patterns that form from the fear of abandonment, it becomes super clear to face your past and recognize where these kinds of wounds started and how they have affected your life. But most importantly, it's about being comfortable with and by yourself. And even though that is easier said than done, when there's fear and a compulsion to not be alone, the more important is once you have this awareness, it's taking action against this because otherwise it's just a theory floating in your head, knowing exactly what's happening, but not knowing what to do about it. So today on the line, I have a fantastic woman who I had the pleasure of talking to, only one phone call, but I wanted her to come back on and help her because I know it's going to help you listening as well. And she knows she pushes people away even though she craves that connection. And she doesn't really trust easily. And when love starts to get too close, she will do things to self sabotage. And her story is rooted in early childhood trauma, and her parents left her when she was young. And so, ever since then, she's been on this constant emotional quest trying to answer the painful question, well, why did they leave me? And it's a subconscious thing, but she knows it's there. And this wound, though buried deep, now shows up in her dating life. And she keeps people at arm's length even when her heart wants to let them in. So today we're going to peel back the layers and explore how abandonment impacts self worth and how healing begins by rewriting these stories that we all tell of ourselves. Evelyn, welcome. Are you there?
I am, Kimmy. Thank you so much for having me today.
Oh my gosh, it's such a pleasure. And thank you for just coming on and sharing. And also, I really want to help you. I told you this, when we were talking before. Maybe just share a little bit more because obviously people listening don't know all of you. Tell me or us a little bit about your dating life and what's been showing up for you.
Well, I recently, pretty fresh up, that all the items that you had introduced us to leading into this
Mhm.
were a culprit of the breakup
Mm.
itself. And these are tough things to get through. And you're right. I've been self-aware of all of these things for a long time, very in touch with my triggers, the things behind them. But the taking action part has lacked. And
Mm.
so many years of being self-aware, and people always try to compliment you. Oh, it's so great that you're aware of it. And which is it, it is half the battle, but not being able to do anything about it almost makes the self-awareness a tease. because
Yeah.
because
That's
now
a
you
good
know, and they say knowing is half the battle, GI Joe, but not really when you're doing anything to change it.
That's so it's a really good way of putting it. Yeah, and it is, it becomes this like constant quest to find answers, but then not knowing really what to do about it. So yeah, tell me a little bit more. So you said that you resonated with a lot of the things that I talked about
Yeah.
right beforehand. What were some of those things that you were experiencing, and like how was that relating to like who you were attracting and even like this last relationship?
Pattern. I think you do attract people that end up triggering you. It's very odd. And this particular relationship is very very quick. I moved for the first time ever in my life within like 3 months of meeting this person. Like it was the connection was that deep, and that had a real love and whatnot. Kind of like what you said about the fast forwarding of the relationship.
Yes, yes.
Um, yes. So, but a lot of the self-fulfilling prophecy definitely happened. The testing of boundaries, the picking of fights to be reassured. I would say that that was something, and I don't want to speak for him, but I feel like at the end it was just there was too much of him having to reassure and convince, and it felt um like I was never gonna believe it, basically. And so I think
Mm.
he grew exhausted and tired of it, um, s of the picking of fights to try to prove it, the convincing, the whole all of it together, I think just really wore on both of us, perhaps.
Mhm, mhm. And and so tell me more, and I don't even think we talked about this before. Like what when you first meet men, because you know that you have this pattern, obviously. Like what
Mhm.
happens, and like where do you meet them? Like is it good in the beginning? Does it go fast? Like tell me more just like that first hello.
The too much too soon, absolutely. It's just 0 to 60. This one was like a total seemed like a IT nerd bomb. It couldn't like you the things that happened so quickly, like you could not even make up. It was so outrageous, right? I think both of us being ADHD was even more, it was like that hyper focus, 0 to 60 super fast. Like you said, too much too soon.
Mhm.
um Type of thing. Yeah. I think my pattern has always been that honeymoon period is like so great, right? And I think both people were a lot of red flags, super hyper focused on everything that's electric and shiny, but then it dissipates quickly. It dissipates just as fast as it connects, right? My mother used to always say, "What comes fast goes fast," and
Yeah.
I would say that's a very very true.
Right. And then are they like sexually charged usually?
Not always, but this one definitely. Like they all the electricity, all the sparks were there for sure in
Mhm.
every way. Yeah, it was like, the first time we had met up after we met, it was like we had the same exact Costco electric toothbrush years ago, same like bagged up protein shake setups. Like it was like you
Mhm.
look for a lot of the coincidences, right? It's kind of like when you buy a new car and all of a sudden you see that car everywhere. What is that? Confirmation bias.
Oh, yes, yes. Mhm.
Right? Yeah. So there's a lot of that, and you just look for all the things. They're like, oh, they're just like me. Oh, they do that just like me. And oh, wow, look at this coincidence and that coincidence. And all the things that are not falling into that confirmation bias really fall to the wayside, right? You're blind to them almost, like
Mhm.
the red flags, for example.
Right, right. Well, no, that's true, and when something feels so good, it
Mm.
you don't wanna look at the red flags, you don't want
No,
to even
blinders.
say exactly, exactly. Um, and then also, like in the beginning, do you express your feelings or are you a little more of that like shapeshifter that I talked about? Like where
I
you know what I mean?
I think with the expressing of feelings, I am usually not the first one to
Ah.
express. Yeah, which is interesting. It's weird. Even in this relationship, we were the most vulnerable with each other post the breakup. And I think it was because we no longer had the fear of losing each other and breaking up, like looming over us, right?
Mm,
So the most honest we were ever, and completely like hands down vulnerable, like ego, pride, all of it out of was the handful of conversations that we had after the breakup. And I asked him why that was. He was like, "I'm gonna dig into that with my therapist," because he's like, "I don't know." And so I followed up and guessed that maybe it was because we no longer had that pressure of the loss because the loss was behind us already.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I want to talk about that a little bit. So, it sounds like you're more reactive in like your ability to really let your guard down and open up because the fears of losing that person is there in the beginning.
Um, I don't know if that's what the driver is for me. I think vulnerability, not just for me, but for a lot of people, was very hard, right? To
Hmm.
actually give up. Like I'm very free with telling my story of my parents leaving and all the, abuse I suffered growing up and things like that. Like it's clockwork. But to really get into those deep onion layers, like past that, I think is more rare for me.
Mm-hmm. So like you're almost like you're comfortable with your story kind of thing
Right.
and the
Yeah.
trauma. And
Uh-huh.
I also wonder like is it almost like this dichotomy where like you'll share that, you'll share the
Mhm.
trauma and that and abuse and stuff like that. But then when it comes to almost just like your real feelings in real times around real things like in the present, that might be harder for you.
It is. And it's interesting because as we're talking about this, like I think between the self-awareness and my ease at telling my story, my comfortability with it, it made me think I was a lot more healed than I was because I'm like, oh yeah, I talk about this with like the people standing in the DMV line or whatever, right? So I must be fine.
Uh-huh.
But just
Right, right.
because you can talk about something doesn't mean that you're healed and everything's just okay. Um, yes, but you're correct. Feelings in real time and such, I think I keep closer to my chest. I do kind of wait for someone to come first or say the first thing. Um, because that same thing you had mentioned, right? Fear of rejection and abandonment. There's such a large fear and disdain for that I don't think I willingly volunteer to sign up for the rejection and
Mm-hmm.
and hurt and the abandonment. Yeah, try not to.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and it's so true. Like I think that it's almost become a script for you. It sounds like this, your story basically. And
It
that
did.
right, like and almost to the point where it's part of your identity as you're meeting people. And then I just wonder like when you disclose this to these men, not just your past
Mm.
relationship, but in the past too, what are their reactions? Like, do they get really into it? Like, do you get a positive response? Like, what? Tell me more about that.
I think there's always like a very empathetic reaction.
Mm.
Guy I just dated, in our post breakup conversations, like he said, he was like, I really wanted to be that person for you. The one that they didn't do what everybody else did. Right. Um, you know, uh, yeah. So it's very empathetic. But I'm not sure, like, maybe it subconsciously, um, sends the message that, like, this person is broken. I don't know, and does that change how they behave or treat you? I don't know, right? Like,
Yeah,
it's
I
hard to
mean,
say. but is
No,
met with empathy usually. Mhm.
yeah, yeah, yeah. No, and that's why I want to hang here for a bit because I think there's something
Mhm.
about this that I also want you to work on that's different than this. So,
Okay.
and in your mind, when you share these things, like what are you hoping to accomplish when you share this? Like, well, what's your kind of gain
Um,
or benefit?
I think it's great when people share empathy for, your pain. Um, but something I also told him post breakup was like, I think because I didn't really want to face my demons head on and do the hard work, I think I tell the story in hopes that this person will heal, help, or save me. And that is not a fair thing to hold, like put on somebody else, is
Yeah.
what I've really realized in this relationship. Like you've got to do that work yourself. You cannot expect someone to heal your trauma for you. Um, that it's just unfair.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then was there a type of pattern of men then that you kept seeing up until now?
It's weird. Like they don't seem emotionally unavailable at all, right? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
for me to move for the first time in my life across the country in less than 3 months of meeting this guy, it was insane, right? People were like, "This
Mm-hmm.
is the most un-Evelyn thing ever," because I'm like a planner. Don't do spontaneous things, right?
Uh-huh.
Um, and it like nothing about him seemed fit the same pattern or profile of men that I've dated in the past at all.
Mm-hmm.
But it was weird as soon as we started to spend more time together and stuff, it was like the old patterns, like we were mirrors, would trigger each other's unhealed parts. And
Mm-hmm.
it became very cyclical and very full because we kept re-triggering each other. Um, he said, he's like, we just keep stepping all over each other's triggers. But as I was reading things, listening to things, it turns out like sometimes being with someone is what brings things out of you. I spent the whole pandemic isolated, taking care of her, making sure she didn't get sick. And I felt so healed and confident coming out of that isolation period. So strong.
Mm-hmm.
I stuck up for myself various ways in various areas of my life and then met him and I was like, I am so ready for this relationship because I'm so healed from, being by myself for so. But the moment we got together and that quick honeymoon phase passed, it was the same thing all over again.
Yes. It's like the same dynamic,
Groundhog
a
Day. Yeah.
different costume on, and
Yeah.
yeah, it's like, wait a second, how did this happen again? I thought this was
I
just,
know.
yeah,
I
I,
know. And that yeah, when I chose him, quote unquote,
mm-hmm,
it was like I made sure to not pick the things like all the other people I was with that I fell in love with, right?
mm.
But somehow miraculously those same things still like occurred. So I don't know.
So, okay, and it sounds like though you were doing a lot of like vetting for a different kind of dynamic and guy, which is always
Hmm.
good. Like, you're looking for
Yeah.
red flags and green flags. But did
Mm.
you try to be different as a dater?
Well, I think moving was a huge difference. I mean,
Hmm.
that was huge, 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 huge. And it was in a very short period of time. Um, I did shapeshift a bit because of his family dynamics. I don't have
Hmm.
children. He has 4 children. So that was, I definitely shapeshifted into that role of trying to, um, be there for him and his family. But
Hmm.
I think that was more circumstantial, right?
Hmm.
Um, yeah. I think he was single parenting every other week with his children, and so before I met the children, um, I didn't see him at all for every other week, right? And I thought that that was kind of better because it wasn't one of these where you're uh, under each other's thumbs like 24/7 all the
Hmm.
time, right?
Hmm.
And so we had that autonomy, and I think we both very much enjoyed it. I kind of, it was great, and then like time or space makes the heart grow fonder. So the weeks where we're together were very extra pleasant because it's like, hey, I missed you for a whole week. So
Yeah.
I think that was something that was very different, and maybe this relationship lasted a little longer because of that time and space. I don't
Mhm,
know.
yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, and
Yeah.
I think right, like, and to your point, there's never a wrong relationship. Like, you always gain something, and there's always something that's positive that comes out of it. Even if it doesn't work out, there's something that you learn from it, even within yourself. It's just a matter of I'm trying to kind of um, unravel a little bit more of the layers than maybe you've thought about before. And this whole notion of not being good enough, like how is that showing up for you?
Well, I find that when I start to feel more anxiously attached, I'm almost like pleading for the attention or the love or the reassurance or the validation or whatever it is, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what's misleading is like, I've had a fortunately very successful career my whole life. I've, done well for myself on my own, etc. And I don't know because nobody has ever actually, like, called me out on it, but I'm starting to think that perhaps, like, people meet me and they're like, "Oh, she's so put together, la, la,
Mm.
la, 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 looks so great on paper," and then it's like, oh, they get to know, oh, she's so broken and has lacks so much self-confidence and thinks so little of herself that she has to beg me for the reassurance, attention, and validation, right? So I
Mm.
don't know, or maybe that's a red flag for the guy, right? It's like,
Mm.
"Whoa, hey, wait a second. You
Mhm.
thought you were this, like,
Mhm.
kind of strong Teflon whatever person, but it turns out, like, you're like a marshmallow or whatever." I can't think of anything equivalent, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Right, right. No, but that's a good point. And so, like, if you were to rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being like, "I'm awesome," and 1 being
Yeah.
like, "I suck," or like,
Uh-huh.
where do you place yourself overall?
Really weird. I would say external things, it'd be higher, closer to the 10, like, if it was work or school grades or whatever, things like that, that are more external. But then when it comes to the way I look at myself internally, it's a very much on the lower half of the scale. And no matter the amount of people, I could get 1,000 compliments about, positive feedback, right? But if one person's like, "Oh, didn't like the way your hair looked today," or something kind of
Mhm.
insignificant, I would fester on that one negative feedback like a piece of sand in an oyster and just keep festering on it. Like,
Mm.
the oysters make a pearl because that piece of sand is itchy.
Right, right.
um, yeah. And so that's just the habit of the way my thoughts route. And so because of this loss, I feel like I lost the greatest love of my life. I finally, I had a referral to an EMDR therapist, but I kept putting it off. I kept telling myself, I'm fine. I'm fine. Like, everything's fine. Um, and then when this happened, I finally reached out to her, and I have been seeing her for a couple of weeks now. And I'm, very hopeful. I really hope I can alter the pathways of my thinking to not always go directly to I'm a one.
Yeah, I'm gonna make a connection for you in a second, but I have one more question.
Okay.
Like,
Of course.
what are you awesome at? Like, when you rate yourself, either when you said you referred to it as external, like, career, blah, blah, blah. And
Mhm.
then you said
Right,
internally it's
right.
lower. But just like you, Evelyn, like, just give
Mm.
me like 3 things that that makes you awesome.
Well, I'm great at planning, like coordinating. It's part of my job as a project manager, right? Or
Mhm.
even non-work, always plan for the girls group or whatever event, birthday event, whatever it may be.
Mhm.
Um, I do think I have a kind of maybe a little above average ability to connect with people.
Mm.
People have said I'm very relatable. I make people feel comfortable when they're around me. Um, that might be from the shape shifting. You shape
Mhm.
shift so much
Mhm. Yeah,
that
yeah.
you can be anybody's anything at any given time, right?
Uh-huh.
So, it might be it's good for other people quality wise, but maybe not the best thing for me. And then third, my empathy. I'm very empathetic. I have a huge heart. I've given more to people who completely never deserve it at all and kept on giving. Even to my parents who left me as a child. So I
Yeah.
would say those three things come to mind.
So, all of the things that you keep relating to you and like what you're seeing as like awesome within yourself actually all relate to other people. You see that? Well, I'm a planner
Yeah.
for others. I'm empathetic
Hmm.
to others and I connect
Uh-huh.
with people. And
Mhm.
even the rate that you gave yourself higher has to do with what you accomplish, not really who you are.
Right. Right.
And that's really important because it relates to how you're leading in like a romantic relationship, even is that you're putting so much value into them and how they can then fill the void of showing you love that
Hmm.
you lose yourself, right? Like, because I
Right.
still don't get a sense from even just as we're talking this little bit of you saying out loud, I'm awesome as is. Like I'm Evelyn and I am X, Y, and Z, like independent from how it relates to other people.
Yeah. Nail on the head for sure.
Well, what are you thinking about as I'm saying that?
Um, just how true that is. Yeah.
How
That
you,
it's very eye-opening. Like, how do you list your three things? And they absolutely have to do with other people.
mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I have let like other people in my life kind of define me and define like my existence basically.
Yeah.
It's tough. Yeah.
And it's, look, this is a natural thing, especially you had that trauma early on, but I almost feel like you've attached this trauma as your persona. Like it's almost like this caricature that you lead with. And because of that, I think that is in your mind like the only way that you feel like you can get like a deeper connection almost.
Right.
Or shape shifting into something that the other people want to see of you. That's a way of getting a deeper connection. I think if we
Mm.
reversed engineer this and say, well, let's just start with you, irregardless of anybody else around you, like what you can do for them, what you can accomplish, like just being super selfish, Evelyn, which would sound really weird. And I think if like we just came up with a couple of things that you could just pull in and do for you, you will become more of the magnet of that healthier relationship without that fear and that angst and that like like what I'm saying, because there's this kind of forward energy with all of that, rather than just kind of leaning back and be just settled, because like when you become that person, you'll find the love. And I mean, Evelyn, like people around you love you, and it's clear to me. I just don't know if you deep down really believe it or even know what that is, because you didn't learn that early on. So it's like loving yourself first. I know it's so cliche. I really even hate saying that out loud because you like see all the self-help. Oh, just love yourself. But it really is that. And I think just like coming up with some tangible, like actionable things and ways you can do that, then it becomes easier in ways of like how you just go out there in the world and date and make friends and all of that because you deserve it.
As you're stating all of this, which is it's so valid, so true. Um, when you mentioned the word selfish,
Mm.
I don't know how suddenly, after so many times having conversations like this with people, did it finally click for me. I take a lot of pride in doing this to not be hypocritical. Now, I know we all have our moments, right?
Mhm.
Where we're, where it happens. But it's one of my core values. I super focus on because I do believe the golden rule of you treat people how you want to be treated. And
Mhm.
what I cannot stand is the people who are like, do as I say, not as I do.
Mhm.
Right.
Mhm.
Oh, it's like, oh, I dislike it when somebody does XYZ, but they turn right around and do XYZ to the next person. But then they try to rationalize, like, oh, that's different. No, it's the same thing. It's just that it's
Mm.
it's e- somebody else doing it to you versus you doing it to someone else. That's the only
Mhm.
difference, right?
Mhm.
The people who have hurt me most in my life, I feel like they were very selfish. My parents
Mm.
dropping me off, never having a conversation with me, leaving me there to be left to hope and wish and thought that they were going to come back for me for years. Very selfish, I think. Very selfish. When I found my father on the internet and we talked about it, he was like, "Oh, you were with so and so and so and so. I thought you were fine." I'm like, "You never checked once in my
Mm.
entire life, right?" So I think I have been hurt by people who I view as extremely selfish. And so I think me trying at all in any way to be selfish is like a block for me, right? Because I'm like, I don't want to do or be anything like the people who have hurt me most.
Mhm.
And so it's like a mental block. And anytime I ever put myself first or choose myself, choose me, like I feel guilty. I feel shame because I'm like, I am doing the exact thing. I am making the same choice that people who have hurt me the most have chosen. And so I think EMDR, whatever it may be, to help me kind of maybe, be able to break away from those type of thoughts would probably be very helpful. But I'm so binary, so black and white with it, right? It's like, oh, either you put everything and everybody in front of yourself and you're completely selfless, or if God forbid, I put myself first, I'm like the most horrible human being. Like those are the two extremes
Mm.
that exist in my head.
Wow. That's really powerful what you said. And I'm so glad we're recording this because I want you to like hear yourself, as you're thinking
Remember
about it. Yeah, like and it isn't black or white. And this is what happens as a way of protection too. Like I call it the pendulum effect. Sometimes like you experienced one way that was awful, you go all the way to the other side. Well, that's not good either. And so in efforts, right, of you not wanting to be selfish, you're selfless, but to the point where you're like you're losing yourself. You're not even true to yourself. And you rely on others to be you rather than you be you. And that's where I think the work really, begins, and it can be so much fun, Evelyn, just to put some levity in all this because I know I'm hearing the emotion as you're like saying this out loud, and it's super painful. And I think that it's going to keep happening where you will end up, the sabotage or push people away because of all these fears that you're having. And whether it's, doing the treatment or like, I believe it, it takes all these different modalities to whatever helps you. There's no one answer, right? Again, it's not black and white. And dating actually isn't black and white. It's always in the gray. And it's taking time with yourself with all of this. And I want to give you just some things to work on, okay? That will help
about it.
you with all this. And number one, um, I would love for you to have a period of time, and we don't even have to call it dating. Let's just call it meeting a bunch of people. Like it could be just going online or going to parties or whatever. I mean, you're pretty social. Just practicing the art of conversation in the beginning stages where you're saying at least one emotion that you're having in the moment while you're talking to that person. Okay. And number two, Sharing something about yourself that has nothing to do with the trauma. Something that you like, maybe a passion of yours, not knowing really or caring what the other person's passions are about either, right? And just like it's almost like in those initial hits when you're first meeting people, really showing people who you are. Now you might say, "Well, I don't even know who I am," and that's fine because you've been shape-shifting a lot. That would be the other exercise. I want you to just come up with like every single day something to brag on yourself with. Like I call it a brag book, and you can have it be like a journal or um do it. I don't know, you could do it on ChatGPT. A lot of times AI now is helpful for it, but come with up with at least one or two things that you're awesome about, or something that you're bragging on yourself, or maybe it feels a little selfish to say out loud, but it has nothing to do with other people, because we already know that you're good at those other things. So, and you can put those down too. But I'm what I'm really interested in is you coming up with something that is just you. So if you were in a room by yourself, what would you be just good at as Evelyn? And it might be hard to think about at first, think about categories like your personality, maybe hobbies, interests, things that you're good at, talents, but just as a good human being. And I just want you getting used to saying things out loud to yourself. Like it could even be like saying it in the mirror, saying it in a recording, hearing yourself say out loud what you're good at too. So, one thing to write it down, the other thing is to say it out loud.
Got it.
What do you think about those things so far?
They're going to be harder to do than it sounds.
Good. That means that I came up with some good homework then, because if they were easy, they would not be good homework. Because it wouldn't be something that you need, right? Um, I just, it's the whole notion of you pulling in and not worrying about what anyone thinks around you. And the more activities, in fact, you can put yourself in where that's the case, the better. It's almost opposite that I tell a lot of people, because a lot of times I'm telling people to go out, be social. I want you to be social. Don't get me wrong. I just don't want you caring like really what's around you. Like it's just more walking into these situations is just like your queen bee Evelyn.
Yeah. It's just so weird. The internal and external is so different.
Mm-hmm.
Growing up, because, I did well in school, things like that, whatever the reasons were, I was criticized a lot. I had a lot of
Mm-hmm.
people who eventually met me say, "Hey, before I met you, I thought that you were so stuck on yourself and so arrogant, terrible things. And I'm so glad I finally met you because you're really down to earth and awesome." And it's like, huh, what would make you think from afar all those things when I know inside I am rating myself a one or negative negative number under zero, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
I really let what people thought, which honestly was their stuff, right? Because it's not like I was out there showboating or acting what it was, whatever their insecurities were, they put it on me when they saw me from afar and thought I was a whole bunch
Mm-hmm.
of things that I was not,
Yeah.
right? And I
Yeah.
let those things like kind of dilapidate me, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I made myself even smaller and smaller and smaller because I didn't want people to feel bad about themselves, even though I had no control over their perception of me. And I
Mm-hmm.
wasn't doing anything to, I think, justify these
Right.
things that they thought of me from afar. So and plus being raised by my grandparents, it was always like, be humble, be the turtle. It's like don't
Yeah.
brag. And if you're good, somebody will say it. You don't have to be the one to call it out. And so with all of those things, I started to just be, try to shrink myself. Um,
Oh.
and anything I was good at, I would downplay and yada yada yada. People, hated on me because my grades were good, but we got whooped for bringing A minuses home at home, right? So you're kind of
Wow.
stuck between a rock and a hard place. It's either like all the kids at school hate you for blowing the bell curve, or you have to go home and
Yeah.
pick which switch you're getting beat with. So,
Uh,
yeah.
but that's so
Yeah.
real, Evelyn. Yeah. And I mean, no wonder it's been hard. And and I would say another exercise as you're talking is to you came to my workshop, you hear me talking about a sexy style, like just putting on like a loud color, be seen, be heard, smile, skip through life, like, and and not really caring whether or not like eyes are on you, like be aware of it. I have a feeling that people will love that energy of you, but I think you're worried about being too much, especially given what you just said. So it's just get used to being seen for just you and just you walking in like this, like just a sexy mama, put on just a dress that makes you feel amazing and go into like a coffee shop, something that you would never do before. So I want you doing things and just almost being a kid and exploring the world. And it's like, well, who am I? It's almost like the Evelyn 2.0. Like who is she in this world now? And
I mean,
I do not want you like dating formally right now. Like I want you social, having meetings,
mhm.
talking, flirting with men, certainly, putting on your red dress, loving the attention, but not really caring about what you're going to do with it afterwards. Like I just want you to relish and enjoy you.
You could not be more correct. I mean, I know this is more work related, but I had worked with a career coach, and
Mm.
she sent me this kind of clip from Runaway Bride. And the whole thing was like, even because I'm so adaptable and such a shapeshifter at
Yeah.
work, in life, wherever, she was like, you don't even know how you like your eggs cooked. And there was that
Um,
scene where Julia cooks eggs like a whole bunch of different ways and tastes them and decides like, right? And I feel like
um,
not just with my career, but with men, right?
yeah.
I don't know what I like. It's just been whatever anybody else likes, right? That happens to approach.
Bingo.
And so, yeah,
Bingo.
yeah.
Because it's not until you get to that point where you can come back on this podcast and be like, I'm Evelyn and I'm X, Y, and Z, and I love this and I'm going to do that. Like, I want you to be there's just no guesswork, out of that. That's when you're truly ready. Because then the guys who you're going to attract with that is going to be they're going to be so different, and you're not going to trauma bond or have to tell your story to get deep. Like they're just going to love you because you're going to already express who you are and your feelings in real time.
And I would say, for those out there, if they, go 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 through the same thought processes. If I could wish one thing, I wish I didn't spend so much of my life caring about what other people thought about me, because
Mm,
I think it really stunted my growth and my healing by being chained to that, right? It really impacted me and affected me way more than it ever needed to be. And my amazing manager suggested the Let Them book by Mel Robbins to me
mhm.
post this breakup, right? And I listened to an Audible, and it's so true. Like, we should not burn so much time trying to control what we don't have control over, because it's worthless. It
Yeah.
absolutely does zilch for
No, in
you.
fact, it
Um,
it does the opposite, right? Like
exactly. It
and it's like
consumes you.
yes,
Mhm.
yes, and you
Yeah.
never
Yeah.
really get the love or attention that you're constantly seeking because it's
Hmm.
all outside yourself. And
Yeah.
so maybe as
And
an ending
mhm,
to this, I would love for you to
mhm,
say out loud,
mhm.
I am Queen Evelyn and I am X, like come up with a word that just describes you as something that's awesome. And I want it to come from you.
I am Queen Evelyn. I'm ready to be worthy. I don't know if that counts.
Beautiful. Ready to be
Yeah.
worthy because you are what?
Or worth it.
There you go. There you go. See, even that I had to help you with just bringing it home to you. Do you see, like
Will
everything
improve.
you say is still like how other people, are perceiving you, and it's just bringing it home and always saying out loud, "I am Queen Evelyn, and I deserve to be seen. I deserve to be heard because I am awesome, I am beautiful, and I am worth it." Like you hear that? Like it's more like boom, because this is like me. And I know it sounds so cheesy, but like even just practicing that out loud and dancing and putting some music on and putting a queen hat on, just like for once, just seeing yourself as royalty. It's so
They're
powerful.
fundamental changes that kind of conflict with my a lot of like my core values, right? Like being the turtle, not the rabbit, et cetera, et cetera. And
Yeah.
so I think it is definitely a big change for me. And perhaps I don't need to view it as in I'm being a hypocrite if it is
No.
something that benefits me, right? I mean, I think it's just a slippery slope. Like I've talked to my therapist and been like, I'm so scared I'm going to be a narcissist. And she kind of laughs at me. She's like, the fact that you're even asking that question, that makes it impossible for you to be a
Exactly.
narcissist,
I
right?
would say the
And
same thing. Yes.
and so same thing here. It's like I'm so afraid if I put myself first or I think I'm worthy, that suddenly the next day I'm going to turn into this like arrogant, conceited jerk or something like that. And I think I need to work with myself to understand that it just doesn't work like that, right? Putting you
Exactly.
first doesn't make you suddenly this like selfish, whatever, like villain of the story. It's okay within means, right? Like within boundaries, right? Like as long as you are
Yes.
not hurtful to other people, you're not negatively impacting or damaging others. I think that those are the guardrails, right? That to it isn't just black and white.
It
Choosing
is.
yourself doesn't make you a terrible person, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Beautiful. No, no, I love that you just said that choosing yourself does not make you a terrible person. And you're so eloquent. You're so you have all the answers, Evelyn. Like when you play this back, you're gonna hear it. It's just time to take action against this. Like it's time to embody it in ways that you'll feel it energetically more than just saying it. You know what I mean? So, like, the more activities and more things like what we just came up with that you do in repetition, it's going to start integrating. And it's then that you'll start feeling different and you'll start discovering just who you are, independent from anybody else. And that includes a man.
Absolutely.
Oh my gosh. Well, Evelyn, thank you so much for coming on. How do you feel?
Great. This was amazing experience. Kimmy, thank you so much for your time, your efforts, all of it. It
Oh
is
my God. You're so welcome.
very impactful.
Good, good. I am so glad you did this. And I know that you helped everybody just listening to this because, again, like you're not alone. We all have felt some way of this before. So, anyway, thank you again for your vulnerability. And thank you again for you listening. This has been the Charisma Quotient. I'm your host, of course, Kimmy Seltzer. And remember, you can build confidence, make connections, and find love from the outside in. And if you want help overcoming your fears around dating, and maybe the abandonment issues are surfacing in your life, hop on a private call with me to map out a dating plan to get you out there to find opportunities to build your confidence and have fun in the process. Imagine just getting some ideas of breaking the cycle you have been dealing with for so long in one call. Just click the link you see in the show notes to book that. And yes, it's private. Yes, it's me. And remember, working on you is working on your dating life. That's all for now.